Our world, our lives have changed. Though separated by great distance, the UMaine and UMaine Machias communities are stronger than ever, staying connected, continuing to learn and grow online. Our people's expertise and facilities are lending a hand wherever we can best serve our state and our neighbors. Looking out for one another, even when times are tough, is everything it means to be a member of the UMaine family. Tomorrow's future starts today, and we'll get there, together.
Good afternoon,
right,
Black Bears, Clippers, parents, guardians, and friends of the University of Maine and the University of Maine at Machias. Welcome our president. She's the 21st president of the University of Maine, and she's also the president of the regional campus, the University of Maine at Machias. Thanks, Joan, for joining us today.
Thanks, Kimberly. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Zoom session. These have become such a norm, not only for us, of course, in higher ed, but in all parts of our lives. So I hope we're all getting better and better at this communication. But in any case, appreciate your presence today. We have a pretty packed agenda for you today, including the opportunity to talk to the full University of Maine and UMaine Machias leadership teams. They're all here, all watching. We're going to hear from our Chancellor in a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, Chancellor, we're checking. We can hear the Chancellor. It's good. We'll hear his remarks in a moment. But the main thing that I want to say is so appreciate your interest in the University of Maine, in the University of Maine at Machias, and in what I'm anticipating to be your willingness to help us shape what will be a fantastic but very different fall semester for all of us. And so we'll take that up in much more detail through the call. What we've put together for this, and some of you've been to others of these with us, is really the full leadership team of the University of Maine and of the University of Maine at Machias. And we've got information to provide to you, also some general conversation, but in particular, we'll start to work through your questions. And you've provided many, many good questions, more than we can answer here today. So some of it will be deferred until we are able to post answers on websites and so forth. But very quickly, I'll just ask a few of the panelists to get started on introductions until Chancellor Malloy is back with us. So Interim Provost Faye Gilbert, would you please introduce yourself and your deans, our dean.
Good afternoon. Glad y'all are with us. I'm Faye Gilbert. I'm the Interim Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost, and also Dean of the Maine Business School. And I have joining me several other deans. Let's begin with Dana.
My name's Dana Humphrey. I'm Dean of the College of Engineering.
Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Haddad, and I'm Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences.
Mario.
Mario Teisel. I'm Interim Dean of the College of Natural Sciences, Forestry, and Agriculture.
Mary.
Mary Gresham. I'm Interim Dean of the College of Education and Human Development.
Anna. Anna Carter is Dean of our Cooperative Extension Service. And Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Welcomer, Interim Dean of the Honors College.
Joyce.
Joyce Romery, Dean of Libraries.
And then to Robert Dana.
Well, I think, Faye, the Chancellor is back, and I can see him moving, and maybe if we can hear him, let's go right to him again. We'll come back.
And if not, you have to blame it on Scarborough, where I am right now. So I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, it's good.
All right. So I'm very sorry about that. I had to be in Southern Maine today and wanted to join you. So what I was trying to say is you could have been in education for 100 years and not had to have managed a pandemic. I've been in it 1 year and I've had to do it. And it is a challenge. But I have to tell you that I'm immensely proud of how our staff, faculty, students, and parents have all risen to the occasion. There's no doubt that that this generation will be the generation recognized as perhaps having to face as many challenges as anyone would have, except perhaps during Second World War or the Great Depression. Having said that, we're going to be better for the experiences and the lessons that we're learning and relearning as we go forward as a society. I truly believe that we'll come out the end of this thing better prepared for what will face us in the rest of our lives going forward. I also would say to students who are thinking about taking time off or a gap year or that sort of thing, join us if you wish. We believe that this experience shared with other students going through the same experiences that you are, shared with faculty who are having to make tremendous adjustments well beyond what they might have been called upon to think they could do, it is really quite an important experience to share with others. You can't go traveling and there aren't a whole lot of jobs. And I actually believe that the time invested in education right now will actually indicate less expense rather than more if you decide to delay that decision. A couple of other things I want to say is over the summer, we're spending a great deal of money to modernize classrooms, to put speakers into classrooms, to make it easier for our faculty to adjust to the new challenges, paying tremendous bills for that, as well as training for faculty to be at their very best, bringing on additional grad students to be of assistance in those efforts. It's going to be an expensive proposition for a university and a university system, but we believe it's a great investment to be made in the long-term success of our students. That's what we're trying to do. And I can only say to you that we are doing our absolute best to bring about the results for students, for family experiences, and for the future of the state of Maine and our nation. We believe we can find the right balance.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. Very helpful to set the stage for this discussion. If you don't mind, I think we'll go on ahead with the introductions, and the Chancellor may need to leave us, but we'll keep track of any questions that he needs to take, and otherwise we'll do our best with them. So let's turn now to Robert Dana to introduce himself and his team.
Hi folks, I'm Robert Dana. I'm the Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students. Thrilled to see you virtually. Hope that wherever you are today, the sun is shining brightly as it is here in Orono. We can't wait to have you on campus. It'll be a different year because of COVID-19, but it'll be a very exciting year. All sorts of Andy Bowen, who is the Director of Residence Life, and eventually, shortly, Richard Young will be joining us, and he's from the Health Services, so he'll be able to talk a lot about matters related to health and wellness. But welcome, Andy. Could say a word about yourself.
Hi everyone, my name's Andy Bowen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Director of Residence Life. I am also an alum of the University of Maine and have lived in a residence hall for about 18 years. So I have your residence hall questions to be answered.
Great, thanks. And Dick can introduce himself when he gets here. Chris.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Chris Richards. I'm Interim Vice President of Enrollment Management. Much like Andy, I am also a proud alum of UMaine. I showed up in the fall of 2006, and it became my home. And I'd also ask that our Director of Financial Aid, Connie Smith. Connie, could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Connie Smith, and I'm the Director of Financial Aid at both the University of Maine and the University of Maine at Machias. And I have worked here in the Financial Aid Office for the last 26 years.
Great. Dan.
Hey, hello. I'm Daniel Qualls. I'm the head of campus here at the University of Maine at Machias, and I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs. And I've got a couple of folks to introduce you to. Where's Heather? Heather, could you introduce yourself, Heather?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Heather Ball, and I'm the Assistant Vice President of Academic Affairs at the University of Maine at Machias, and I'm also a faculty member in education at UMM. Welcome.
And Marnie?
Hello, everyone. I'm Marnie Kaler. I'm the Dean of Students and Admissions here at the University of Maine at Machias, coming to you directly from the bold coast of Maine, and we're super excited to have you here this fall.
Ken?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Ralph. I'm Director of Athletics here on the Orono campus, and I'm just here to welcome our future Black Bears and our future Clippers. Great to have you.
Thank you, everybody. When Dick Young arrives, we'll introduce him as well. We wanted you to be able to attach names to faces, not only just for this call, but because these are folks who are resources and wonderful guides and mentors and helpers for all of you students. And so as you hear us talk today, you'll be able to figure out, how to stay connected to the individuals on this call who can help you. I'm just going to make a few overarching remarks, and then we'll move to questions, which I'll moderate and start to move around the table, the screen here with all of you. So as you, I believe, have heard, we have been planning pretty much since the middle of March for what the coming weeks will bring. All, of course, happening under tremendous uncertainty as we watch this pandemic unfold around the world, as we watch it take twists and turns that had not necessarily been predicted. And of course, I know you can relate to this because everybody faces this in their day-to-day lives. And we're essentially no different. We are doing our very level best, as the Chancellor has mentioned, to create an experience for our universities, for both the Orono campus, the Machias campus, and our field sites and every place else that welcomes you back to campus here for the start of classes on August 31st. The campus is open. It has been open all summer, but very sparsely populated. It's starting to come back up under very stringently defined safe conditions. I drove around this morning and there are cars in parking lots and people sitting at picnic tables at distance from one another, looking at their email and beginning to come into our labs and into our facilities again. So this planning has been, I can't emphasize enough how careful it has been, but also how in many ways uncertain it is, and the important part that you, the students, will play when you are back here with us is something that I can't estimate strongly enough. You're going to be vital to creating the community that we want to create for ourselves, to defining and constructing that with all of us who are here right now as we move into the fall in a very new world, but a world that we believe can be good and productive and encouraging and inspiring even as we face the world together. So I urge you, if you have not, to review the resources and common principles that you can find on our UMaine System website. And again, I know there are lots of places to get information. We are finding that there's just so much need to constantly communicate. I think our teams are doing a great job communicating, but you may need to look a couple of places before you find exactly the thing you want. And I encourage your resourcefulness in doing that. In any case, web pages at UMaine and UMaine Machias as well. Want to call to your attention specifically something called the Black Bears and Clippers Care Plans, because those plans are specific to our two campuses. And they outline 7 guiding principles or expectations for a healthy and safe semester. And a big focus, and this is a lesson that I'm learning from colleagues who've had a lot more experience. This is a lesson from public health campaigns in general, is that we need to come together and take responsibility collectively for our safety, for our well-being. We're going to need to learn to say to each other politely and respectfully, I would feel better, please, if you would put on your face covering. I would feel better if you maintained a 6-foot distance. And we're going to need to learn new ways of talking to each other, but you know what? They aren't any different than the ways we're learning to talk to each other in the business world, in K through 12 education, and in so many other places. So you'll be back in this world, and I'm just so excited about what our faculty, our staff, our administrators have planned to create what will be a new future really for higher education type experiences. Here are a few things that I want to be sure to point out to you. First of all, the planning is very much focused on safety. We are following civil guidance, following the governor's guidance for the state of Maine. And something that I think is very special for us, and we could do a session with this group maybe sometime, is that we have a scientific advisory board comprising faculty members from UMaine and from the University of Southern Maine who are studying the scientific literature even before it comes out to the general public, creating their own opportunities to get grants and study things. But they are advising very closely on what's the current guidance on distancing, what's the current guidance on aerosol spread, how do we need to respond and behave. And so we have resources that are well in place now, and that will just continue going on, and that'll be a part of our world. We'll be hearing from these scientists, and we'll be learning more about this disease and how it spreads. We will be returning to campus for face-to-face instruction this fall, in combination with many other modalities of course delivery. And the provost and the deans may speak to this further. You've given us a bunch of questions about these. Very good questions. What I just want to reassure everyone is that pretty much any combination that you can imagine will be available here at the campus. We are certainly working very closely with faculty and staff to be prepared and have as much face-to-face instruction as is feasible in place. But feasibility is even a challenge because we're looking at room sizes and how many people can safely be in a room at a time. And I'm hearing terrifically creative ideas from faculty, you know, like there'll be the Monday, Wednesday group, and those students come, or the Tuesday group, those students come to class on Tuesdays, then they go back and work virtually with their small groups and their project teams. And a different group of people comes into the classroom on Thursday, so that we are getting the chance to interact. But again, provosts and deans will tell you a lot more about this and about what all these definitions are. Part of this is to serve you very, very strongly, meet you where you are. We are hearing from students who are confident and ready and want to be back here and wish their entire schedule could be face-to-face. And we are hearing from students and families who wish to be more able to work online for now. We know that this pandemic is unpredictable, and so there could be changes where we would need to make a change on a dime, in a sense, as we've had to before. Or we may be in a situation where certain students have symptoms, and we're going to talk about symptom checking in a moment, and are advised to stay home that day to find out what this is. So faculty are preparing to be flexible, to be understanding, and to realize that this will be a time like we've never experienced before. The first day of classes will be August 31st as planned. We will not be holding our traditionally scheduled fall break, and students will be departing from campus no later than November 25th. The 2 weeks of the term after Thanksgiving will be conducted remotely, and I'll ask Faye to be sure to define remotely for us because there are all these terms that are being used. And we will be encouraged bare requirements, for example, and there will be more guidance as we get closer and we see what the state of things looks like. Another piece of, I think, really great news and the result of very good planning is that both UMaine and UMaine Machias, in fact, the entire system, have in place already a broad plan for testing at the initial intake of students at the fall term. We will continue having testing as a major piece of our monitoring and tracing of any potential campus or community cases, so that we are then positioned to make available isolation procedures, to take care of any students or faculty or staff who need to be in isolation as needed. The details of the testing plan, again, those are likely to shift a little bit as we get closer to the semester, but as we have those in place, trust me, they will be made as public as they possibly can be. We have a partnership already in place with the Jackson Laboratory and Convenient MD for the COVID-19 testing services. Likely, we will be focusing on several cohorts of students coming from out of state who come to us without a test in hand, students who reside in our residences, and a few other at-risk populations. So we're very, very pleased to be able to have this in place. It is but one of several important features for a safe return. Social distancing is another. It is critical. The evidence from research about the wearing of face coverings and the reduction in spread of the infection that comes as a result is solid. And so that will be a feature of the university, just like it's a feature of pretty much every place you go these days. So come prepared, bring your masks. We'll have plenty here for you, and that will be part of the way this goes. We will be expecting all members of the communities to wear masks at all times. The entire university is examining how we do business. everything from student life to housing to athletics to dining to academic affairs. And I'm confident that we have in place already, and by August 1st, we'll have even more very creative and innovative ways to ensure that you have an experience as a residential college student or at an on-site kind of location that is memorable, that does bring you what college is meant to bring you, which is a way to make connections, to try new things, to begin to develop your plans and your vision for your own future in community with others, and to make a difference. We'll have some opportunities for that. Our nursing students, our education students already, there are some calls for those students to be involved perhaps in helping in the state as we face the pandemic. Again, everybody paying very careful attention to safety and to accommodating individual choices as much as we possibly can. So I hope from that you take away a couple of things. Your safety, absolutely critical. We will do everything that we can do based on science, based on civil guidance, to ensure that that is in place. That said, we also are a close community, and we are prepared. Should we find that we have cases, should we find that people have symptoms, there will be mechanisms to take care of folks and to work together to contain any spread of the disease. We also are committed to the notion that universities do evolve, not usually as quickly as we've been expected to in the past few months, but the evolution that we're in right now is likely here to stay in some form because of meeting people where they are, the notion that we need online courses, remote delivery options, flexible options that have some kind of hybrid arrangements, as well as more traditional face-to-face clinical and practica sorts of experiences. We are going to be with all of you together inventing what that looks like for the future. And I think you as students will understand, and parents and guardians and friends as well, that so much of our lives already is requiring us to get further training or further certifications through online mechanisms, that this is a part of how we learn and grow. And so we're looking to do it at the highest levels of quality that you should be expecting from the University of Maine and UMaine Machias. So with that, we'll open up to your questions. We have a lot of your questions coming in, so I thank you for all that. I'm going to start by sort of, there are lots of questions about testing, about moving in, about these different modes of educational delivery. So those of you who will be taking those questions, be prepared. But let's begin with the question about scheduling for the provost. There are a couple, and the deans may as well be called on here. Here are a couple of the questions. Please explain scheduling and different modes of educational delivery, particularly remote, online, and asynchronous, synchronous. A related question is, if my students' classes have been changed to mostly remote, would it make sense for them to not live on campus for the fall and just wait until next semester to live on campus? And then another sort of in this same line, you can imagine, right? My child is looking forward to starting classes. She only has one in-person lab. The value of an online class is not commensurate with in-person instruction. I think that's one where we're pretty excited about what we're doing online, and so we'll hope to prove that it is valuable and so forth. So, Faye, would you be willing to take up a few of these, please?
I can try. I'll start by talking about that this is the new normal. The world is adjusting to new ways of connecting, to learning, to interacting with businesses. And what students found to be very different in the spring is now going to be a little easier as we move into the fall. And we've had a summer to work on all of these course modalities to infuse them with enriched experiences. There's an engineering class, for example, that's remote, Zoom. Students meet synchronously, meaning at the same time, Tuesday, Thursday, but the labs associated with it were lab-in-a-box kits that were mailed to students so that they could perform the experiments and report back. The outcome of that class was a solid 5 rating from the students who loved the approach to learning in that way from labs. So for the rest of their lives, the rest of our students' lives, and the rest of lives for our faculty, we're going to be expected to use these modalities and to shape them to our best futures. We're investing at UMaine in the technology, in the software training, and we're not passing on cost for shields and face coverings and safety and technology, because we're really focused on helping all of us learn better in these new modalities that include online asynchronous. Online asynchronous means there's not a set time for you to meet with the class. Most of the material will be recorded in short modules. You'll be working with that module, reading your material, answering questions, completing assignments, but you'll do that at your own pace. It may be best targeted to our working students or to those who cannot be there 10 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday for a scheduled time. Remote is typically, though not always, online synchronous in some ways. You will be meeting, as we're meeting now, in an online or Zoom or some other format, but expected to be with your colleagues and peers at that time for class on a given schedule. That may vary a little bit. Faculty may have days where you're simply online, but that expectation of being there Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 o'clock in a distance learning setting is the best description I can give you for remote. There are variations. Some remote classes involve students collecting data at a distance and mailing it in, or meeting with peer groups in empty classrooms to discuss issues. Then there is online asynchronous. We've got remote. We also have on this campus, mainly for juniors and seniors, individualized instruction, which are field experiences, thesis, dissertations for graduate students, independent studies, very small groups of 1 to 8 that work with faculty. All of these modalities are in play. We want a balance provided so that students who want to learn from a distance this year have those options to progress, and that students who want some face-to-face experiences have those experiences on campus. Some of those will be from face-to-face instruction. Some of those will be from outside of classroom experiences. And face-to-face will also be a bit different, an opportunity to learn differently. If it's a large class, part of the class may meet on Monday, part of the class may meet on Wednesday. If there are concerns over exposure to the virus, some class may need to be. It's a lot to take in, and the flexibility required of our faculty is huge. Are there other examples, deans, that I've missed that would give students a feel for the diversity of options they're walking into this fall?
Faye, I can answer or make a little more context with that. I mean, in the College of Natural Sciences, Forestry, and Agriculture, we teach a lot of field courses, a lot of lab courses. We have people that are working on farms, facilities down on the coast, and those that are in the health fields. We have clinicals, you know, for the nursing students, but also the folks that are trying to get a degree in communications disorders. They get experience working in the Connie Center, which actually is a clinic. So in terms of field work and farms, we have several farms right within the area that the university runs that have everything from dairy to horse to sheep and experiences. University Forest is right off campus. And so if you're doing forestry or ecology, you will have access to lots of different environments, both the river and in the forest. So
great examples. And for all of those, there may not be a classroom assigned. And so the word remote would be by that class, because there it frees up a classroom for a smaller class to move in a larger space if there's not a classroom meeting required for that course. But it may be categorized as remote. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's all distance learning or all Zoom. President, are we?
That That sounds terrific. I think a couple of points. There are some very specific questions coming in about particular students and their particular schedules and their degree and their program. I'm going to urge that you find the appropriate dean's office advisor or other person within your college, your student's college, if you're a parent, and get those questions directly to them. They will be able to help you. I also know that the schedule is still forming because we're working on these categorizations, and those are going to continue to evolve. So we are hoping that that's all stabilized by early August. There was a question about, a good question, a fair question about, well, why are you letting the faculty decide what kind of mode they can teach in? Well, I mean, we've made very clear to our faculty and staff that we're going to be here. We're open for business. We are looking for the ways to do this safely. But I also point out that our faculty and staff, just like employees in any business, have their own situations, their own family circumstances, their own health conditions, their own young children and childcare issues. And so again, we're working to find the solutions that can work best for everybody. And as a person with mathematics background, there are too many variables and so many constraints that we can't really optimize this. We are doing our level best, though, to make it work. And so I appreciate your flexibility, your understanding, but you need to keep the questions coming. Many of them we've heard, but not all of them. I am going to turn now to a very big batch of questions that has come in about residential life, about moving in. There are several testing questions that let's hold those to the side, and if Dick gets here, we'll engage him in those. Very good detailed questions on testing. We're going to need to have you looking at detailed guidance because we don't want to get it wrong. But Robert, general questions. How will move-in work? How do we find out when we're supposed to move in? What will it be like in the dorms? Will people be allowed to go to other people's rooms? Will there be gatherings? And all of the kinds of things that rightfully students and families are thinking hard about right now.
Thank you. I'll turn to Andy in just a moment, but let me just ponder this for a moment. The campus will still be very alive. There'll be all sorts of interesting opportunities. And one of the things I've noticed throughout the COVID crisis is that one of my daughters calls it like we've created a deficit sort of mentality. And I'm trying to actually turn it around to think, well, being in the time of COVID is an opportunity for us that nobody on this screen has ever had, and hopefully we'll never have it again. So for our students, I look at this as an opportunity for great growth and exploration, great experiencing, if you will. I think it'll improve people's, communication with each other and the intensity of relationships. So I try to think of it in a positive light. The campus will be very robust with all sorts of discussions about this. But Andy is our expert in residence living. We have a great program set up for students, and what she'll talk about will extend outside of the resident halls too. So Andy?
Thanks, Dr. Dana. I think we could start with move-in and what move-in will look like. And unlike years past, instead of one solitary move-in day, what we'll have is a move-in week. So every day in the morning from 8 a.m. until about noon, we will have students moving in small groups into their rooms on campus. Those assignments, the date assignments, are available now on our website as of today. So if you're curious about what day you've been assigned to move in, I invite you to check out our website. Look up, you'll need to know your room assignment because they're listed by building and room number. And then if there is a question about your schedule, if it's something that you simply can't make happen, I want you to email us. We are doing everything possible to make sure that this goes smoothly and that people are happy with this experience. So email me at um.reslife@maine.edu, and we will do what we can to make sure that your move-in day is a day that works for your schedule. So when students move in and they're part of our residential community, there's a lot of things that are going to be the same as they are in any year. Students are still going to meet new people and do fun activities and programs with new people and join clubs and activities. They're going to be challenged to think critically and solve problems and manage conflicts. They're going to experience this thrill of living alone outside of their parents' home for the first time. All of that is going to be the same. The difference, though, is that we are asking them to take an individual responsibility for the community and wear a face covering, to maintain a social distance from the other people in the community and to limit their group size. We're going to ask them to wash their hands maybe more frequently than they had in the past, and we're going to ask them to monitor their symptoms. But aside from those things, we are not going to limit their ability to engage with other students on this campus. And whether they're choosing to engage in person or remotely, we're going to do what we can to help facilitate that, because that is the core of what we do in residence life, is create these communities, whether they're happening physically or remotely.
Andy, I might also ask Marty to comment on move-in and the resident situation down at Machias.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, ours is very similar. We're also going to have a block of time that students are going to be moving in. Because we're small, we're a little more nimble than the University of Maine is. So we're going to be sending out very specific information in your letters, in your appointment letters. For those of you who are returning, who are joining us, Doorward is being renumbered. So that's pretty exciting. So your letters might look a little different. And if you're not used to a 4th floor, that is new. You didn't miss anything. We didn't add a couple more floors, but we make sure that we have the same information. And same thing, you're going to meet lots of new friends. We're going to have programming. They're going to be safe. They're going to be with your masks. They're going to be with, coverings. They're going to be with social distancing, but you're still going to find people that you've never met before and connect with, and we're going to have really neat programming available for you. Some of it might look a little different. It might be a little more virtual, but it will still be there, and we're going to make sure you're going to have a very enriched experience for your whole entire time here.
I might comment too, and Chris can talk to this. We'll have students from probably 70 different countries, almost every state in the nation. You'll be finding all sorts of things that you haven't found previously in your life. The place will be as different an experience as you can imagine. And because of that, it'll be a very full experience. So Chris, maybe you'd want to talk some about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the, as an alum thinking back, what's exciting is some of those people you meet your first 3 days at college will be some of the most important in your life. I can actually say that 3 of the groomsmen in my wedding, I did not know at 8 a.m. when I got to campus at the University of Maine. They were friends who became family, and upon arrival, didn't know them. They even existed on the planet. So it's one of the reasons I do what I do, and I love what I do. I'm passionate about my job and the work that I do at the University of Maine. This is such an exciting time, and I'm thrilled to be a part of that for thousands of students every year at UMaine and also at the University of Maine at Machias.
I think Ken might be able to talk too just about, things are changing in athletics. The athletic enterprises are going to actually be going full board, because we'll have all our athletes here and they'll actually be better included in the community. They won't be as busy on the courts or fields. But Ken, what do you think?
Well, I think we're looking forward to being back, and we'll be welcoming in 122 new freshmen into our athletic program this year, and they're going to have a lot to contribute. And one of the interesting things about athletics here is there's a lot of international students, and they provide a lot of richness to our community, and we're really looking forward to that. We're not going to have our traditional home athletic events this fall, which is disappointing, but every school in the country is really dealing with that right now, so we're certainly not alone. But we are going to get our students much more engaged in a number of conversations that we think are going to add some depth to our campus. And we're excited about that. We're going to be working with our Division of Recreational Sports to make sure we can have some offerings in our rec center and some types of offerings through our intramural sports programming. So it might be a little different in terms of how they're organized and how they're spaced out, but we're going to make sure we have opportunities for our students when they arrive here.
So thank you all. I hope what you're taking away, those of you who are out in the audience, is that we ourselves are developing and constructing a picture and a plan for a campus that will be vibrant, robust, We'll preserve as many of the things that are so special about residential college life as possible, but do them in new ways and do them with new possibilities as well. And so I think that it's also important to note that as you get here, students, this will take even bigger shape because you'll think of things. I heard some seniors fairly recently in a conversation say, you know what? We need to do more to bring on, to help to orient, to help to engage the first year students. We need to think of some new things. And this was a group that didn't have that responsibility necessarily. So there will be inventions that will happen that we'll be able to be very proud of and that will become a part of your Black Bear and Clipper experiences, I think. As I said, the questions are falling into several categories, lots on testing. I'm still going to hold a minute longer before we jump into those. Several about related matters of health and safety. I want to come back just briefly to the teaching and learning setting here, because that we've heard some things, and I'm going to see if the provost and the deans want to do another round of examples. Because we all are now so focused on all of these different modalities, and our faculty are really spending time this summer designing a course that maybe is face-to-face with options for online synchronous participation for the student who needs to stay in his or her dorm room that day and so forth. While that's all happening, what I'm observing is a very strong focus on student learning, on student success, on what can we do as we construct these very new approaches to teaching, perhaps in some cases material that folks have taught a long time. What's central about the learning? What is it we care about? What do students need to take away from this? What will they need in their future careers? What are we focusing on providing to them as experiences? And so I think there's this amazing conversation on the campus that's kind of, it's diffuse and it's happening in different ways in different places. That's about learning. It's about making sure that our students' success comes first in a way that I find very energizing. And again, students will be a part of it. The provost gave us an example, or someone gave an example of a course that got such great reviews by being online. You know, we'll be together. We'll be able to make changes. I've gotten a couple of questions from parents or students who weren't so happy with some things that happened in the spring. You know, professors putting their courses online and sort of not coming back, not being available, not checking in with students. Well, now we're planning, now we've got time. This isn't emergency instruction in the same way that it was in the spring. So we'll be able to hear those concerns in near real time. Deans and associate deans and advisors will hear from you, and we'll have mechanisms for working with our faculty and staff to make sure that you are served well. A couple of very specific questions. That are, I guess I'm going to turn to Machias Athletics because we've gotten a few about that. And many of you may know that we made an announcement today that we are suspending athletics at the University of Maine at Machias. A difficult announcement, a difficult decision, lots of factors in that. But in concert with that, I've seen some preliminary work coming from Machias that suggests that opportunities for campus engagement, for outdoor experiences, for recreation are going to be very well developed there. And I don't know, Dan, if you would like to begin with any comments about Machias. The question is, how has the university taken into account the number of students that UMaine Machias will lose because of athletics not being in place?
Well, yeah, it was not an easy decision. And what we have to do is provide experiences here for folks who are interested in athletics, whether it's intramurals or club sports, or in the future trying to bring back athletics when we're able to do so. But there's a lot more you can do at the University of Maine at Machias for athletes and for other students. I think Marnie's got a whole list right off the top of her head. Marnie, can you throw some out?
Absolutely. We're going to be expanding some of our mountain biking opportunities. We're going to be expanding our Blade Society, which is our amazing fencing team, which we're excited about. We're going to be expanding the club opportunities on a smaller scale first because we don't have club sports right now, but that's an opportunity for us. And this is really a way that we can actually keep our students here and keep our programs preserved. And that's something that we're really striving to do right now. You know, unfortunately with COVID, it's hard on smaller campuses. You know, when we have less students here, it means that we don't have the same opportunities that we had in the past. But what we can do is actually shape these new opportunities to make sure that we're utilizing the Sunrise Coastal Trail, which is an amazing opportunity. If you have a four-wheeler, you can still bring it to our campus. 300 acres that are right behind our campus that students can go explore. We have an amazing trail network that you can go and experience. And then we're also going to have weekly volleyball pickup games. We're going to have the opportunity to compete against other schools. We're just forming that right now. And it's going to look different than what we had before, but we're still going to have a robust experience. Even if you want to come and play sports, come please, because it will look differently, but it will still be here.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Marnie. Emily, I've got one for you. Will music education majors be able to sing with other students and participate in music classes in person? How likely is it that the School of Performing Arts will hold in-person classes versus virtual? How likely is it that performance-based groups will be able to meet in person to rehearse?
Sure. So this has been a focus of really intense planning, especially on the vocal side of things, because as you know, singing is about projecting, and that's a tough thing during a pandemic. Where we've settled out is really a mix. There is one ensemble that we just can't figure out how we would do a good experience of it, either remotely or in person with distancing for a variety of reasons. Our biggest group, University Singers, and I know there was a question specifically about that. Our intention is to continue face-to-face rehearsal there, but probably it's going to be reduced group size because Maine has a gathering size of 50. And while we can put 50 people in our largest area, University Singers would typically be a larger group. So it's probably, you know, rehearse in partial groups for that. And then we do have one ensemble vocally that is going to be doing its work this fall via Zoom. That's for more experienced singers, and we're confident that we'll be able to do a good experience. You can see the range. It's a different experience. We've been working on licensing to be able to do streaming of copyrighted material, so that we'll be able to open concerts that people can't physically go to for everyone in the community to participate in. So it's really about problem solving this one thing at a time. But the intention and the plans are for there to be a vibrant, though modified, performing arts experience on campus for students.
I'll just add a sort of personal note to that. My son is a high school music teacher in another state, and I sent him an article about some research that I had seen that was underway to really understand how wind instruments in particular, what kinds of dispersion and spread are necessary. And I felt that I was being very informative to have found this article, and he already knew all about it as part of an organization that I guess, you know, is involved with the study. So my point is this, Dean Haddad has told you how it looks today. We are watching this science. We are likely to adjust as we go, as we learn more about what's safe and what isn't. In fact, 2 UMaine researchers just got a very prestigious grant from the National Science Foundation to actually study the spread of the aerosols, to look at how in general, it's interesting and technical. We'll put it up on our website. But, you know, this will be very interactive. As we learn more, we'll adjust. As you respond to how things are going, we will do our best to adjust. A few more questions. Joyce, will the library be open for studying, and will all floors be open?
We will be open, and all floors will be open. It will look different if you've been here in the past. We've removed some seats, but we're here and we're ready to welcome you all. And we hope that you'll have a great experience with us as you will have with the rest of the campus. We're planning some events and workshops that will help you, but also will be fun.
That's great. There are also several questions about finances, about availability of conversations with financial aid, which I'll ask Connie to speak to in a moment. But I think we should jump into the testing questions now. And my caveat here, and I see Dick Young has arrived just in time, so that's perfect. I'll give it a start and then ask Dick to introduce himself and go on. These procedures are being worked out as we speak. I'm seeing drafts daily of the details of how this will be done, but I will try to answer a few of the general questions and then go to Dick more specifically. So, oops, wait a minute, lost them for a second. So, will students living on campus be tested on a regular basis? The work right now has us doing widespread baseline testing at entry. And Dick can explain more, although these plans change a bit, as we learn more by the day. With periodic testing that will also be widespread, but will be sampling for different kinds of groups. It's likely to be strategic, and so that will be the case for the testing. It would seem prudent for all parties to be tested. We've determined that based on the science, based on mathematical modeling, which is very sophisticated, and we're partnering with Jackson Labs and doing that work. And with our available resources, we will test those who are in the highest risk groups, such as residential housing students and out-of-state students, faculty and staff who have traveled perhaps, but we'll work within Maine's civil guidance. We talked about the ongoing testing and said, yes, there will be ongoing both testing and other surveillance methods, as well as symptom checking, encouragement, strong encouragement to watch symptoms. And Dick may speak to more about that. Will we only test people who show symptoms? There will be different approaches for symptomatic students versus for asymptomatic. Someone wants to know what kind of testing. This is the what's called RT-PCR. Testing with nasal swabs. So this is to test for the virus's presence in an individual. Dick, you get the gist of these questions. Would you be willing to introduce yourself and say a few words, please?
Sure. First of all, welcome everyone. My name is Dick Young, and I work in auxiliary services here on campus, and I work directly with the Cutler Health Center as a liaison with the Health Center facility, who is our Northern Light Health partners with the hospital locally, and they provide the health service on campus. And my role is to work with the student life group and the facilities group and the EOC for surveillance of campus and coordinating the testing and et cetera for this project to work. We're getting ready to open up in the fall, so that's what I've been doing. So in terms of testing, President Ferrini-Mundy, how would you like me to go in that direction, or just answer questions?
Anything more that we're able to say right now, Dick, about how this will work out, plans and timelines? And I do also know that some of that is still not finalized, and we'll hold it as close to the wire as we can to make it as detailed as possible, including questions about students coming from out of state.
Okay.
Where I know that they might get tests coming in, but Dick, go ahead.
Maybe you could talk about the process too, as people arrive to campus, how will it be phased and what that'll look like as they drive on. And drive in.
So, all right. So first of all, we'll talk about the asymptomatic testing. This is the testing that Dr. Dane is referring to when students arrive on campus here in the fall, starting on the 24th of August. That will be our first arrival date. And we have worked with Res Life to coordinate that in terms of the number of students arriving each day. So it looks as if we're going to have approximately about 600 students arriving each day, and those are going to be divided amongst 19 residence halls. So that gives you about 60 or so people going into each resident hall each day. That kind of gives you an idea of what the flow will look like when you bring your son or daughter here. It'll be about 60 students a day going into a building. Prior to entering the building, we will be having the arrival to campus be through one entrance, which will be the Rangeley Road entrance, which we can show up on a map, and you will be getting a map in the mailings. And we'll bring you up through a testing facility where your son or daughter will come up in a vehicle. We'll then route you to a particular site, which we have a 6-bay tent, large tent, 10 feet tall entrance points. So just keep that in mind. It's tall enough to bring a car through. And we will be having the medical providers, our partners with Convenient MD, there will be performing the tests. We will be doing that again in the morning of your arrival. Once you've completed that test, the individual will be giving a wristband color-coded each day. indicating that they've been tested. That will be your ticket to get into the residence hall per se. They'll know when you have that wristband on that you've already had you tested. If you didn't have a wristband, then we'll have to find a way to route you back to the testing sites. We're hoping that the flow will be testing and then to the residence halls, and then you will be moving in to the residence halls from that point. Once you've been tested according to the state guidelines, you'll be assisted by your parent, which or 2 additional people can go into the residence halls. All will have to wear face guards when they go in, or face coverings. And then once we've got you situated, we would then move into what we call a quarantine period until the test results are known. Right now, we're looking at a 24 to 48 hour results from our partners, Jackson Laboratory. We anticipate it to be close to 48 hours. Possibly in some situations, because we are testing the entire University of Maine system during this week, which is close to 20-some-odd thousand students, we will then probably have maybe some days it might be 72 hours. But we're in hopes we'll meet the 48-hour time frame. During that time, Res Life will be involved with your son or daughter. They will be working back and forth and keeping them engaged as best we can with those types of situations. We'll have various things for students to do, and Andy Bowman can speak to that at some point, or has already. And then what we'll do is provide the meals, as always, for the students in that situation. Currently, right now, because it's asymptomatic testing, this is not positive testing. These are people who have been tested who are not, we have no indication that anyone's positive at this point. We will follow the face covering requirements of campus, which everyone will have a face covering. The students will be systematically taken to the dining commons to pick up their meals and go back to their rooms and eat them. And so we'll have that staged out as well and well planned out with the Res Life staff to make that happen. And then, and then from that point, they will remain in their rooms until we get the test back. And like I said, it should be about 48 hours. That should cover the testing part in terms of the asymptomatic testing. In terms of symptomatic testing, well, we can dovetail right into that. If one of those individuals was to be positive, there is a communication piece already set up. This university has been involved in a communication piece now for the last, since I've been here, which is quite some time, of how we communicate surveillance tests when we had certain situations that happen on campus that may involve the student, and we have to get communication out and up into the senior administration and to President Ferrini-Mundy as well. They're aware of what is, who then goes to the president. So we have a communication pathway for any positive test. And in terms of the requirements by the state, our lab partners, Jackson Laboratory, will report any positives to the state of Maine CDC. And then they will then reach out to Convenient MD, which is our second partner, who will then notify either myself or the EOC. And then we will then start that internal communication to ensure that your son or daughter is identified and notified. They will also notify your son or daughter. So that will be notified by Convenient MD. That is per state requirement. So they will be notified as well. And giving that at that point resources that are available to them medically, what is available on campus for them, and then on that point we will in turn reach out to your son or daughter and make sure that they get in the right place in terms of the isolation quarantine spaces that we have on campus. And we have a total program that's been put together there that's starting to come together within the next week. That should be totally in place. Res Life partnership with Cutler Health Center and other custodial services and dining have all coordinated that service so that students will be met for all their needs in quarantine or isolation for the period that they're there. Once that is completed, hopefully everything comes out positive, they'll be allowed to return to their regular housing assignment once they have been cleared out of the isolation if they're a positive test. That was how that really goes on a positive test. The same process will be in place for someone not feeling well. My understanding, we'll be seeing an electronic symptom tracker coming up here in the next several weeks that will be starting to be piloted here on campus. And once we get the chance to get that out, all campus students and faculty and staff will have access to this, where you actually go in daily and put in your symptoms, your temperature, how you're feeling, etc. If that turns out to be a red screen once you've done that, then you will be notified to actually contact your healthcare provider or contact your health center, and we will then get you in to be tested if necessary, if that's what is deemed by the medical provider to do. And if the results of that test is taken, we will place you in quarantine and support you as we would with anybody in quarantine. Daily check-ins from Health Center, daily check-in from the Counseling Center if need be, daily check-ins from Res Life. So they will be engaged all the time they're in isolation. This is not going to be what we consider to be isolation. This is actually engaged isolation. And we will also have various activities for them to do on their own. And Res Life has worked really hard to put together some of that as well. Along with, at the time, they will have access to Wi-Fi. They will go into a hybrid mode in their classes. They will have students accessibility service available to them to help support their academic needs in that situation. And they always have their college dean or faculty member to reach out to ensure that they are staying up with their classes and those things. So those have been put in place, and each one of us that work with that student will be engaging with them and pointing them in the right direction and supporting them in what they need. If they have questions in any of those areas, they'll be well informed of how to manage that. If there are any issues with that, we will connect them with someone to help them get connected. But these are fully Wi-Fi buildings. These are not something that's not capable of handling any of those types of interactions that we're talking about here. And then once the CDC, just to let you know, while they're in isolation, since we're all contacting them, the CDC also does their part to do a daily check-in twice a day on symptoms, and they have to manage that by the state. So anybody who goes into isolation or quarantine is contacted by the CDC on twice a day symptom check on top of everything else that we'll be doing with them, which is great. And then if anything starts to change in those directions, symptoms, feelings, they will notify our team, EOC, and then we will get them to the proper healthcare facility that they need be if that may be the case. On top of that, we do have a 24/7 ambulance service on call on campus who will be available if there's any emergencies or anything come up during after hours. They can reach out for a well check, or they will go in to assess and see if they're necessary to transport that individual. And thirdly, there is a 4000 line, 581-4000 line that the students will all have a card, an information card in their isolation room with all this information on it. They can reach out to the on-call physician call line and talk to a physician anytime after hours from 5 to 8 in the morning if they need be, if they're not feeling well, things are not going well, and then that would transport them to interacting with the medical system. And each one of those calls are given to the health center in the morning. So when our physician comes into the health center, they are notified of any on-call service that took place in the evening, and they will follow up with each one of those students with a phone call, make sure everything's okay, and follow the symptoms. I know that's a lot of information. I've given you a lot. My whole point was to tell you that we're fully dedicated to servicing students in isolation and quarantine. We've set the infrastructure up to do that. And we did a little bit of that this spring, so we are familiar with some of the things that we've done this past spring, and look forward to having your son and daughter come, and we really plan on taking care of them while they're here.
Yeah, a couple of points which are very helpful. One is to remind folks that we have Northern Lights Eastern Maine Medical Center is located on campus. Our Cutler Health Center is run by them as an affiliate. So that's one wonderful thing. The other thing is that University of Maine Machias is doing very similar processes. And that's wonderful as well. So just those 2 points. And you might give some parents or loved ones advice who are coming from out of state. Do you have any advice to give them about their being tested as they come to the state, or for the 72-hour test for their student?
In terms of coming, we do have I can give you a couple things there, Dr. Dana. One is that we do have a piece that's coming out on isolation and quarantine that's being finalized right now that we will get out to students so they can actually see what by definition that is. And we want everyone as a family to speak about it, because it is something that potentially could happen. We are not looking forward to this to happen, and we're hopes that we don't have anybody in isolation and quarantine. But sometimes having a conversation as a family before you come here and how you want to support each other in that situation is important. We do have asked people to look at putting together what we call a kit, Go Kit, Go Kit. We've given them the information of what they can put in that kit that might help them. Now, keep in mind that if they are tested and they are positive, they will not be going back to their resident room. By our standards, we would have to move them to the isolation room. So therefore, a Go Kit is to put the necessary things, a few changes of clothes, some various snacks they may want that get them through that first endeavor in a room, a phone charger. If you have a thermometer, great. We'll have thermometers in the isolation rooms. But again, if they want to bring their personal one, it's always nice to have. And off the top of my head, giving you a list. But there's a number of things that we feel it would be helpful for them in the isolation, along with keeping their academic materials, computer, laptop, anything that they want there in an area where we can work with the Res Life staff and their roommate to make sure this is all given to them in the isolation room, so then they can continue their studies, live safely there. In terms of parents coming in, Robert, if you're referring to, obviously we're not requiring parents to be tested to come into the state, to bring their son or daughter here. They are coming into the state of Maine, so they do fall under the compliance. So all the exemptions that exist under the state law or that's been out by the governor apply. So if you're coming from one of the 5 states that have exemptions, those are still continue to be exemptions. And if there's no recommendations you to be tested as a parent to come here, and most of your facilities to make reservations, you can work out with them prior to coming what they would expect you to do before you came. And so just to alleviate some anxiety there, right now, all those states, Bob, that have exemptions would still hold true for parents.
One final question, Dick, from me, just is if a student gets tested and they're waiting for their test results, how might they start their class, or how would that go if it overlaps at times?
Well, that's what we would work with the academic faculty with, and notification to make sure they're aware. Number one, the most important thing a student can do is talk to their advisor and talk to their faculty or their dean, and don't sit back and wait for them to contact you. Get out and contact them that you need assistance. They're all been excellent. They know their area. They know how to support students. They've been doing it for a number of years. And once you've been able to communicate with them, they could transfer you to a hybrid type mode to the class, or get you the needs and resources you might need in your situation. They're fully aware of the need to isolate and quarantine with this pandemic that we're dealing with, and they're prepared to actually work with you each individually on your needs. But the biggest part there is having the student reach out, either email, phone call, and they will get back to you, and we will give you the support. And there's always student accessibility services as outreach for you, and they can also put you in touch with the right people to help discuss how to support you in that situation. So we've done this new 30-second thing to reach out and say, hey, I'm in quarantine, what can I do to help me? And you will get communicated back with, and things will happen. So that's all set up, I believe, with the academic people if have a hybrid approach and online and remote. So we will not expect people to fall behind by going into quarantine and isolation, but we will reach out to give the support they need to do that.
I hope what folks are hearing is, first of all, the care in this planning. Second of all, the very strong focus on taking care of our students. The compassion that is really central and thematic for all that we're doing. And so appreciate that, Dick. I don't know if you mentioned, but there would be contact tracing going on as well, I assume.
Yes, there's 2 parts to that, but I won't get into technicalities. But contact tracing is done by the CDC. So any contact tracing will be done by the CDC. So if you're a positive case, they will be reaching out to the individual who's positive. And in the last 48 hours, anybody who's been within less than 6 feet for greater than 30 minutes will be asked for those individuals. And then we will reach out to each one of those individuals, the CDC will, and discuss with them what steps need to be taken. So therefore, there may be some people or individuals or students, I forget the right label here, that once they've been contacted may need to go into quarantine while the other positive would go into isolation. The contact tracking is what we'll be doing with our electronic piece well within that, and that is to support the CDC. So when they do reach out, we can provide them classrooms and areas where they may have been, so we can start looking at some of those class lists and notify the faculty if necessary, or if it's athletics, notify the coaching staff, those types of things. So we'll have a communication pathway to, number one, make sure the safety of others, but number 2, to go in and do any disinfecting and things we need to do in those particular areas, which facilities and auxiliary custodians are all up to speed on what they need to do on that. So that's the contact tracking and the contact tracing, President Ferrini-Mundy.
One of the questions I'm seeing here on the thing, so I hate to keep asking you to answer the questions, but many parents who are not from exempt states are asking, what is your good advice to them in terms of prior testing, or just preparing to come and drop their student off?
I'm glad you asked that question. I've been out to the Maine website now, I think 7 times, Robert, over the last 10 days to read about the actual compliance certificate of compliance that's out there. But I believe the way it reads is there's 2 options for you: to be tested or to isolate for 14 days. So if you drive into the state of Maine, there is not necessary if you're coming from Massachusetts currently to be tested to come into the state of Maine. But you do say that you will quarantine for 14 days in lieu of doing the testing. That is, I provided some answers to those questions, Robert, and we can get Margaret to work with you. That's our information officer, to get some of that out. But you come here, you take care of your son and daughter, and then you would leave the state. Or if you were to stay in a hotel, you would have to sign the certificate of compliance saying that you would isolate yourself or quarantine yourself for 14 days, or for the length of time that you stay in the hotel, which means you wouldn't go to grocery stores, you wouldn't go to restaurants, you wouldn't go to some of these other facilities, and you'd work out having your meals. Either you would go through a drive-through or you would have them delivered to you. So these are some things that the hotels are familiar with in the state. They know how to manage this. So I would strongly encourage you, if you're planning to stay over and you're from Massachusetts, contact the establishment ahead of time, make your arrangements and find out what they have in place and what they may require you to do. But it's not necessary to be tested, but there are some things that may need to be signed on your part to come into the state. That's my understanding.
Thank you, Dick. There are some other dimensions to this question that have come up too, which have to do with whether a student who brings with them some sort of certification of having had a test or getting results, and we still need to clarify which that is, inside of 72 hours before their arrival. I am assuming we're still working on some guidance about how that would work, but that's a possibility, right?
Yes, that guidance is there, and that is out now, and that they would provide documentation that they've had a COVID-19 PCR diagnostic test, which is what we're providing here on campus, indicating a negative. They need to have a negative test result 72 hours prior to the date of arrival. That is going to be a challenge, and we know that. Asymptomatic testing is difficult to get done in most states currently. That's not to throw a negative on it. It is possible, but it's not an easy task to do. But if you are able to bring it, we've had several students already provide these to us for situations they needed to be on campus. So it can happen, but that was what they would require, a 72 hours prior to the date of arrival, a negative test result for a diagnostic test. We would accept that as in lieu of testing them when they get here.
Thanks. I'm going to turn to a few of the financial questions because there are many, and understandably lots of worries. So I'll list a few and then turn in part to Connie, but we may also need to hear from others on these. With the pandemic going on, it's been difficult to get a job. Will there be help in dealing with tuition payments or any adjustments to payment plans, especially for students who are paying their way through school? There's a related question about billing and when bills will be sent and when they must be paid. A few questions about, if our students' classes are all remote or are all online, what justifies having them come to campus, or variants of that? Might there be, reductions in tuition or something? You've just been hearing for the last hour about the amazing planning that's going on. And so we are doing everything we can figure out how to do to offer the potential for a full-blown on-site based university experience, even though not every piece of that will be on-site. And we're continuing to work with our faculty about how much face-to-face is available. But as you just heard from Dick, if students need to isolate or quarantine, we've also got to be ready to provide them with a way to continue their learning if they're able, which we hope they will be. So it's complex. You heard the Chancellor say that these are new and very, very challenging times. It's a chance to experience those collectively and together in a way that would look different if you were on campus than if you are at home. But of course, these are individual choices. We'll work with you all to be as flexible as we can be, to be as compassionate as we can be. But we are hoping to be as ready as we can be to have a safe and rewarding and enriching experience here. A couple more questions. about costs. Primarily, I think, let's see what else. Well, Connie, why don't you go ahead with anything that would be relevant for folks on financial aid?
Sure. Well, first I'll go ahead and I'll address the billing questions. So right now the bills are being worked on. There were some decisions that are still kind of up in the air and being worked through. Last I talked with our bursar, he was hoping that bills would go out either by the end of this week or the beginning of next. And this year, normally the bills are due for the fall semester on August 15th. And this year they are being extended for a month. So bills won't actually be due until September 15th this year. And, you know, along the lines of, I did see the question regarding, you know, loss of job, having trouble finding a job, things like that. Because those are such individualized situations, the best thing you could possibly do is contact my office and talk with either myself or one of our advisors. And we are open for business as far as like virtually right now. We're not open in the building yet. But we are working on that. I did see another question about that regarding our offices, like the student records office, the bursar's office, going to be open. And we are fully planning on being open. The way we do business might change a little bit. I mean, we will be looking to limit the number of, you know, the amount of traffic that comes through our offices. So we might still, you know, have appointments, try to do some Zoom meetings, phone calls, things like that. But the students will have the option to come into our office. We'll practice all of the, you know, proper procedures and things that we need to as far as face coverings and things like that. So, yeah.
To stay home and take online courses, will scholarship amounts be affected?
That's a good question. It's going to depend on the amount of, I mean, the scholarship isn't dependent on where you live per se. Where scholarships can be affected is based on your cost of attendance. So if the student ends up opting to stay home, living within, like I said, that cost of attendance.
So people should be checking with your office then.
They absolutely should.
On that. Absolutely. Great. Great. So a few interesting questions about space and how we'll use it. This maybe goes to perhaps start with Faye. Will students have access to designated academic buildings during remote classes? If so, how will they know what space is available for them? Would there be reservations or some kind of an app? I think an app sounds like a great idea. You know, will students be able to get together with each other? Will there be space for that? And how will that all work?
We're in the process right now, or registrar is in the process right now, of assigning courses that need to be person-to-person or hybrid or high-flex to room numbers, and to remove those courses that don't need room numbers, so those that are online or remote. By next week, we hope to then have a list of classrooms that currently do not have classes assigned to them. And then, yes, an app would be great. A reservation system would work. We will mark those classrooms for social distancing guidelines, and many of them will be open for student groups to meet, or for a student to go in and do a remote class if they need a space to do that, similar to the library, other space on campus available for students to gather. We hope to have those classrooms that are too small for classes or that are empty for this fall be used to enrich those learning opportunities for students all the way across campus.
Great, thank you. There are a few questions that speak to the issue of sort of how will we, what are some other safety measures? I do know that we're planning to have widespread availability of face coverings and also wipes, so that if, you know, if a student uses a table or a desk, or a faculty member does, you know, I think we'll start to try to develop practices of go ahead and wipe that down yourself before leaving for the next person. We'll, again, be building new ways of behaving here. There was a question about laundry. I don't know if Andy wants to take that one, but how will the laundry situation work for students in the residences?
Well, all of the residence halls have washing and drying units available for the students who are assigned to those buildings. And each semester, typically, our students are given our residential students are given $25 in dining funds to use for washing and drying their clothes in the residence halls. And for fall of 2020, there are going to be additional funds available for students to use at no additional cost, which is exciting. So we really want to promote this idea of hygienic practices and making sure that the students are taking care of themselves to make them as healthy as possible.
Back to another fiscal question. There will be, and we'll be announcing exactly what this is, a reduction in room and board, given that the weeks following Thanksgiving, we will be fully not here. For those who elect not to be here, which we expect will be most of our students. We do want to remind you that we have some students who do live here. It's their primary home, and there will be accommodations, of course, for them to stay as needed. I'm going to do a very quick roundtable, and it won't be possible for everybody to talk, so you'll have to pick your thing that you need to say. But the last question, it is an academic affairs question. What's the plan to better connect and serve students for their online courses? Will teachers and professors be available to help one-on-one or in person? Will tutors be available? What about study groups? Faye?
For online courses, I know faculty have been working with our Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning all summer to infuse opportunities for peer group discussions, for teaching assistants to provide assistance, and to have the time to create in those online asynchronous experiences enriched chances for students to work with material, to report that material, and to get feedback on that material. While I cannot promise that it will be perfect, it'll be different this fall. I can say that for 150 years, the faculty and staff at the University of Maine have been meeting students where they are and guiding them where they want to go on their path. It's going to be a little different this fall, but I believe the experience will be rich, whether you're at a distance or very close, and that you will be pleased with the progress you make toward your degree. Look forward to meeting you this fall.
Thank you, Faye. We'll take that as Faye's last comment. Anybody else, just kind of wave if you think you'd like to make a comment here to this, to a great attentive group of students and families and folks eager to figure out how to be a black bear or a clipper in this new world. Last, anybody have anything they'd like to add here?
This is Dane Humphrey, Dean of Engineering. One thing that's going to be that's exciting is all students are going to be able to see, regardless of your major, and that's the construction of the Engineering Education Design Center. Literally this fall, you're going to get to see this building come up out of the ground. The finished picture is behind me. Very, very exciting opportunity, and you can't really get the full experience if you're just sitting at home. You got to come to campus.
It's great. It's very exciting. They're digging holes now, or there's probably more technical language for that, but it's cool to watch it. Anybody else? Yes, Marnie.
I just want to say, Machias is just a little bit different than the University of Maine. Things are just going to be a little bit different, but everything that you're going to get at UMaine, you're going to get in Machias. It just is a little bit tweaked, but we are also 100% committed to you. We are here for you. We're small. We're very, very nimble, which is nice. Not that UMaine isn't, but we get to have that nimble card a little bit more. And so we're just over the moon to have you here, to have you experience college and just welcome them to and be part of our community.
I would join with Marnie and say, come on, we're waiting for you. We just can't wait any longer. So come on to college. It's going to be wonderful.
Anybody else? Okay, well, folks, thank you all. Thanks to those on the panel and on the call on this end. Thanks to everybody watching. These opportunities to interact, I hope we'll be able to continue, and we'll continue them after you're back in new ways. I agree with what's been said. Come on, we're ready to give it a try. Let's find a way to do it that suits you and your circumstances, but that keeps in mind the fact that coming to college is a unique opportunity, a unique time. It's a very special time, and we look forward to helping that be as safe and as of as high quality as we can make it. So thank you all. You know how to reach me, I suspect. Addresses are available for everybody on this line. If you need to be in touch by email, I encourage you to get in touch, ask your questions, watch our websites, and let us know when we need to keep communicating in new ways. Thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon.